Hello world. Patricia O'Connor and Frida, Reba, Darcy here tonight. We are at Frida's place, piled up here on our little wrought iron antique David. And what you see, what you're looking at here, is a rather large Trident Maple, and it is budding out somewhat. I don't know how much of that. I don't know how much that. You can see I got little red buds all over there, all over there, all over there, and the tiny little tips are all starting to just show themselves. Ooh, I need to fix that light before we get too nuts. But what we're gonna do tonight is I'm going to weed the yard here. I'm gonna get rid of all this. I'm also gonna have to back off that light so that when I rotate this tree around, I will knock off any buds with that. That's something when I think that I can live with. We can adjust. But other than that, that's kind of what I'm up to tonight. We have how is that on my sound? I think that's still okay. We have several different kinds of encroaching crudola growing in here. There's this clover. This is clover 2. It got cold, that's why it's purple. And then there's some stargrass. There's this stuff. I don't know if that's just stargrass gone wrong, but there's something that actually looks kind of cool. It actually looks like artificial turf or little grass that would be the right size to be grass if it's at the base of a tree. The only thing is, that's weeds. That's got to go. That's not moss. So yeah, tonight, while I will be cleaning this up, we're going to clean it up and get it kind of dressed and ready to go. I've got a future project coming up with this tree in not too long. The tools we will be using tonight to clean up the top of this tree, my ever favorite tool, behold, the weenie skewer. Also, I finally broke down and I got schooled this week. I had some large pieces of bamboo that I rescued from the dumpster. They were huge pieces of timber bamboo that had been used to make blinds. And when the cord on the blinds broke, somebody tossed in the garbage these 5 foot, 6 foot long pieces of timber bamboo that were 2 inches wide easy. So if you look on my balcony, you will see that I've decorated part of the face of my trough that the trees sit in on my shelf, so that it doesn't look like just the blunt end of a 2x12. I've got that bamboo as kind of a little base plate around there, a baseboard looking thing, if you will. But it kind of looks like bamboo, and it kind of, it has a little feel to it. Well, I have some pieces of that left over, and I've been watching some of my teachers take bamboo and use it for skewers when they're working soil and stuff. And they even showed where they grabbed a piece of timber bamboo and their root cutters and cut it down into sections and then worked it down, and how long it would last. And that they were even in the big use when they were repotting a tree, and it was a huge 2-man job of repotting a huge yamadori. They had to prop part of it up, and what they ended up doing was propping bamboo sticks underneath it, wedging them underneath it, and then running wires and lines to the root structure and stuff. It got very involved, but they were quite often using these. So I went, yeah, okay, I've got some pieces left over, and I've got a root cutter. I was watching what you did there. I think I could make one of those. I get it now. This stuff is hella hard. I mean, this is super hard. to take a piece of bamboo that was this wide, and then take my root cutters and grab this little edge of it, just to do that. Well, that edge is what I tore off. So just to grab that much of it, that was way harder than if had been a piece of pine or oak or anything else that you would imagine. That would have been a 1x4, and I would have done that to that much of the end of a 1x4. It would have been much easier than the amount of just it's strong. This stuff is. I mean, I've heard it was strong, but I didn't realize just how hard it would be to cut. But I mean, you really had to squeeze to break that. So tonight, tonight we'll be using the weenie skewer. Behold the weenie skewer. Then we'll also be starting to bring this back into play. My sidekick gets her training treats. This is our third show today. I'm not going to make a point to always do 3 shows. I don't feel like I've got some fire burning that I have to just like knock out 3 shows in a day. But we are in a bit of a weather pattern. I did have three ideas spooled up running ahead of me that I thought I could fairly quickly go from one to another. We were able to go through those first 2 shows and get them out in short order. So now here we go. Tonight at Frida's place, we're going to clean up. I've got this tree sitting on a 55-gallon garbage bag that I'm hoping will help me minimize the mess. There will be mess. I mean, it's like don't even when it comes to just realize early that there's going to be mess. That seems to me the only way out of not being just horrifically disappointed, because this is going to get. Now I have big plans. I have plans. Not long after I got in to bonsai, I started experimenting with what I like. I started watching videos. I got an oak fairly early on, so I was watching a lot of videos from other bonsai artists who were elders who had cork bark oaks, and some of them were heavy into wood carving and stuff. There was a lot of people who were carving up their cork bark oaks, and then some point I started seeing who had maples and what maples were about, and what I came away with after a few months of being just infatuated with bonsai, where there were trees that you could have and kind of just grow, and that there were trees that you constantly had, that there were practices, that there were very, very well-known practices that could lead to more and more, that certain trees would lend themselves to specialty practices and lend themselves to all these refinement, to all this, different things to get them more and more and more refined. And certain trees lend themselves to certain personality types that love to put on the dog when it comes to how much discipline they have shown. And I'm not she got it, flaunt it. So yeah, when you go through something with that much discipline, there are certain things you can do where that will almost never show, and there are certain things that a person can do where discipline will absolutely pay off. Maples is one of those. If you have a maple that has beautiful fall color, then with an okay canopy, you can have a beautiful maple. And basically, you watered it and fed it. You know, maybe you got a pretty okay tree. You bought it or acquired it in the summer, and it had this canopy going. And then the fall colors came, and those colors came, and you got a second thing to just totally love about your tree all over again. And then fall leads to winter, and all the foliage comes off, and you're looking at a naked tree. At that point, you either get a really cool third thing to enjoy, which is you know, that tree with its cover off, that tree, you know, in its skin, so to speak. And when done real well, they are real beautiful. They are real impressive. You know, there's something unto themselves how beautiful they are when you're just looking at how well the branch structure is, and that silhouette, and all that light comes through all of those branches, and you're just, you know, as a tree without a leaf on it, they can be so stunning in such a different way than the other two ways that impressed you before. And that's what you see people enjoy about maples, and that's you see different practices. There's, you know, I haven't practiced this stuff personally. You see me talk about my pines and some of the things that we do to try to make our pines better and better and better with our candles and our needle count and, you know, our energy and stuff. Maples, you have things too. You want to, you know, people will eliminate every other leaf or something so that the light will get in better and make the inner part stronger, you know, or they'll cut every leaf in half to do the same thing, or you know, they'll defoliate their maple to get them to come back stronger. And then the roots are a big deal. This tree does not have what I think are very impressive roots. Just the opposite. I think it has, you know, when it comes to pines, you like big roots coming up and twisting around, and they can look like this or they can look like that. I don't think I've ever seen anybody say pine roots that came out of the ground and had bark on them or something were ugly. But I don't think that people would find the roots of this maple particularly attractive. They're big. They would probably say they're big and bulbous and unattractive. So, you know, in a lot of ways, big is what you want. But I think when it comes to maples, something that had a little bit more of a spread that went kind of around and just flared out more would be more desirable. It might be that there are quite a few practices in with that I haven't you know, learned to do. Like maybe I could be splitting some of these roots and putting pegs in between the splits and letting them heal so that the whole footprint gets wider. I mean, there's all kind of things, and there's all kind of things I've thought about doing with this tree over the last couple of years. When I saw this tree without foliage for the first time, that was me as a beginner understanding that I had a maple, a Trident Maple in training. What this tree has going for it is some girth. You know, it's got a big, thick trunk. And it has, but it has 3 trunks. And at first I didn't mind the 3 trunks, but also it seems like maybe I didn't have my eye right at the time. Maybe just I hadn't seen enough trees, or maybe my eye didn't go to the right thing at the right time, or maybe this happened on my watch, or maybe a little bit of all 3. But since the time that I came to have, in the couple of 3 years that I've had this tree, it looks like from here to here is way too long. And I didn't always think that. Has it gotten way too long? Did it do that on my watch? Or did I just not know to look out for that? And with a big canopy out here, I didn't notice the distance from here to here seemed so long. So, I don't know. At first, I thought about maybe trying to cut back one of those three trunks and making it a 2 trunk. You know, just making it just a 2 trunk. But then I would have to hollow out part of the tree to get rid of, to make where that 3rd trunk used to be a believable scar that when healed over would make that old trunk line basically disappear. I'm going, it's going to be years and years and years and years. We're not talking about cutting something off and growing some foliage out to where it looks nice until it finally heals over, but it looks nice in the meantime. We're talking about actual years and years and years for a hollow feature that you would have to carve into this maple, which they don't like that. They bleed all up, they leak a lot of sap and stuff. And so that's a lot to think about. And I'm not that excited about I'm not that excited about this tree. And that wasn't true. I am excited about the tree. I still love this tree. I wasn't in love with the fix that I'd come up with. And I hadn't thought of yet the right thing. When I thought of the right thing, all of a sudden it kind of came into place a little bit. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I am going to air layer. I'm going to air layer this tree in a couple of months. We'll let it leaf out. We'll let it start moving all the stuff that it's doing early in the game in spring when it's really good and green and all that. And then I'm going to go up in the higher. I'm going to go right up in, let's see, from what I've been told, you make 2 lines, rook and rook. And the distance in that line between one cut, and those are your cuts. And then you peel the bark out of that, and then you scrape all the phloem off in that. Okay? So after you've done that, you're going to have those 2 lines. The top line is going to be the line that replicates where the roots come out. The roots are not going to come out of that area that you cut. They're going to come out just above that top line. I've also seen quite a few videos. See, it's kind of like being a substitute teacher in a way. I have known about air layering for years, and I haven't done any of it. I've done quite a bit of cloning over the years, and now we can add, and I've done quite a bit of from seed growing over the years. Never done an air layer. I'm not particularly afraid of it. I don't see why the ones that fail though, and that kind of bothers me. Because what I have in mind, and to my way of thinking, would definitely take the top part of this tree into a into a nicer realm. And otherwise, it's not a bad tree. Any other person could come home from the bonsai club with this tree and just be tickled to death to have a Trident Maple. The things that you hear me complaining about are the things that I've just kind of been looking at when I look at this tree for 3 years. Not really doing a whole lot to it. But I wouldn't say I've fallen out in love with it. I do have those issues that I mentioned. But instead of it being a slant, if I put a cut right here, this cut, well, like say right here and the other one right there, and I did them at that angle because I want this part to be straight, then we'll get roots coming out of right here where the trunk is still fat. And then I could plant that in a pretty oval pot. Haven't seen the foliage. Foliage is ruby red and absolutely gorgeous. So that's the idea. What else could happen is it could not take, and then we would have just made an enormous scar on that tree that we're going to be years getting over anyway. So we won't have helped anything, and now we will have issues that we'll have to get over. You know, and we'll have things that will take time to get over. So the other side is, even if it does take, that will give us, I think, a cool looking, and I'm going to stay with the 3 trunks if I do that. It'll be lower, though. Trident Maple. It'll be fat. It'll have those 3 trunks. Be in an oval pot, you know, be in an oval pot like this with a nice blue color or something, maybe to go against those ruby red fall colors. And but there's no sprouts down here. I don't think the time I've had it, I've seen it sprout down here. And while we're doing this, I plan to use some plastic that I can see through. So if we start, you know, if white roots start appearing in the substrate at some point, I should be able to see it, and we're not going to sweat it until I can. But if it doesn't, if I get my tree that way and nothing comes out here along the base, I'm still gonna get my tree up here, and then this will just, you know, it'll be up to this to put out something if our air layer is successful, because I will take it. I will take it and leave this. I will take it, and then I will paste over the cut on top and sit back and wait and go, your move, up to you. And then at that point, if it hangs in there, we'll start trying to work on a new design, something that's a little bit more of a maybe 2 trunks for this guy, and maybe we'll start. I'll start looking into root work, things I could do. You know, how much of that do I just cut off and start over to try to make a nicer root base out of that? That's something That's something maybe I could look at on the repot. So that's my ideas with the Trident Maple, and with the other things that, you know, with the little black pines that we just started, that we just planted, that we just, you know, I planted another round of seeds today, and then we have a big ponderosa pine coming back home here in a couple of weeks, and we're going to start a new process and go through a new path and plan, and with that tree, that's going to be pretty exciting. And with all that going on, when everything is it's most spring like, and everything is going just pretty nuts, that'll be the time that I break out the shrink wrap, the Clonex. I just bought some Clonex. And the sphagnum moss. Make sure that all my knives are hideously sharp, and then we'll go in there. And start cleaning stuff up. So I think that'll likely be one of our Saturday night live bonsai shows. Last Saturday night show, I think, was, I would say, our best so far. Wasn't it was, yeah, I would say it was our best so far. I'm not using it right now, but for going live, I had different problems that presented themselves, and one of them, the sound quality was different when I go live, and it was not all up to speed. So I broke down and got a microphone, and we threw that into the mix, and it still took me I think our first show with the microphone we did okay. I expect to have teething problems at some point. I don't know everything about it, and when I turned it on, it worked, and we were off and running. The problem is, at some point, I'll think I've got it, and then when I go to do a live show and we've got no microphone, I still won't learn of anything about it, and so when it fails, I won't know what, All the joys of bringing live entertainment into are you okay over there? All the joys of bringing live entertainment into other people's homes. Meanwhile, Frida has decided that her foot needs washing, so that's, if you hear that, it sounds like she is really enjoying that. Are you washing that foot, or are you eating that foot? What's going on there? Okay, the experimenting that I'm doing with the bamboo stake, it seems to be a really good tool for this, in that it's pretty hard. It works against the top of this substrate pretty well, helping me break down these little clusters of where these clovers have gotten a chance to dig in. I can grab this guy and just start giving it the hard rake until I make all the green fuzzy stuff go away. It's grassy looking though. It's not moss. It's probably that star looking weed that is so overgrown that it's been allowed to go so much you don't even see it as little stars. All you just see is, maybe that's what it is, or maybe it's just something else. But I've let it go on too long. It almost looked like a lawn. Okay. My nails. My poor nails. It's another one of those root canal. Ow. I win. Looking at all of that, you know, freshly, slightly ripped up substrate, you see little hints of red in there, and that's the base of where those clover roots are, because they had kind of a purplish red look to them. That makes them stand out. Hard to pull out. They are really in there good. And that's with the soil wet. All right. This is going to be a minute, but it's also not very stressful, I gotta say. It's kind of one of those jobs that you can just kind of go out and do, you know. Because all of this is weeds. You see how I'm clutched up on this chopstick? I mean, I'm really going in there kind of hard because all of this is weeds. That's not what I would want to do to maple roots if I were down there working amongst them, but I'm not. I'm trying to remove all the interlopers. So it'll be interesting to see. It'll be very interesting to see how this tree responds to the air layer. And if our air layer takes, and I'm talking about this like I'm going to do it because I'm going to do it. If our air layer takes, I think we could come away with a pretty nice looking maple out of this. That's just what I think. And I've been wondering, you know, I hinted at that earlier. I had been wondering what was the way to go with this tree for quite some time. And that's the idea. That's the idea that I get excited about. That's the one I could see turning this into nice material. Like, when I thought of that, I went, yeah, that's, if you gave this tree to a bonsai professional and saw it 2 years later and he made you sorry you got rid of it, what was it he would have done? And I went, that's what a bonsai master would do to that tree to make you sorry you ever lost sight of it. Kind of excuse me, that was just kind of that mentality. What can I do to make this better? What would teacher do to make this better? And that was kind of led to this idea. Oh, so much weeding. Oh, so many weeds. Okay. Go in here and start pulling in the mud for some of those they're clusters. You know, you see a little bit of this, and you kind of work your way down to the base of it, and it's a cluster. So we have, this is Wednesday night. This Saturday night will be our fourth Saturday night live bonsai, our fourth one, and I think the shows have been going well so far. I knew that I haven't been, you know, I'm like, don't overly promote them. We're going to have a, you know, this is a one-man show and you've got a lot to figure out. So we'll just start doing them. And if you do one without sound, without realizing it, that's about right. If you do one and this happens or that happens, it's live. I mean, you know, we might be a little dog and pony show, but live is live, and they're for me, they're exciting. They're exciting to do, and I enjoy doing them. Also, they're a great opportunity instead of me just necessarily covering some material that I hope is entertaining enough. It's more about getting in touch more with the viewers and responding to their queries and getting to know y'all better and that kind of stuff. It's as much about that as anything, or maybe more so. But yeah, I hope it evolves, and I hope we do this for a long time. I think I see a future in it, and I'm looking forward to doing more of these. Now that our sound issues are done, I think our shooting quality is pretty good. It's not the same as what I'm doing right now. Should be fairly high. Should be fairly high resolution. You should. But when I go live, it's not. We're not shooting at that high resolution HD stuff. It's like 720 or maybe more than that, but it's not super high when we go live the way it is my recorded programs. We excuse me. I have when I shoot these videos, when I'm recording these videos, they're taking in so much data that this phone that I still consider new because it's only a month or two old, by now it would already be data full. The amount of videos that with the small amount of videos, and just since we've had internet up to full capacity and stuff, that phone would already be full if I were taking all of the data that we're generating on these videos and committed it to the chip in that phone. So to get around that, the phone is plugged in to something called an SSD card, SIM, and SIM card. And it record, you know, and that's kind of like what you keep your photos on and stuff, except that it keeps this video off the memory of my phone so it doesn't wipe out my data. And if it wasn't for that, we're shooting at a high resolution enough to where the lifespan of this phone and my data bank, we would have already blown past that. Now, so when I shoot live, we're not making benefit of all that. It's just kind of going through my Apple laptop with my Apple laptop lens, and then it's remotely asking my phone to be the camera. But it's still at totally different settings than the 4 and 5K stuff that I have the phone set on when we're going through our SSD cards. So that's a little bit. The first show, our sound was awful. The second show, I thought that since the sound was good on my phone, that I would not use the camera on the laptop. The first show I used the camera on the laptop, just like I was turning it, lift up your laptop, turn on the little camera on that, you see the little green light, and there you are on a meeting or something. So I was surprised how bad the sound was. So the second time I saw that I had an attachment, since it's linked to my iPhone, that I could have hit a button and made the iPhone do it. And knowing that I like the sound of my iPhone, I just thought on the second show, if we were using the iPhone, that I could still probably use the laptop as a monitor, because I had seen that it works that way without having to hardly know anything really. And then I just sort of assumed that meant that if we were shooting through the iPhone, that we were probably shooting sound through the iPhone. We weren't. Would have to have gone through on the iPad and manually changed what microphone we had. So that was at that point. I just decided to go ahead and bite the bullet and get a microphone. And they're not, I think they weren't bad. I mean, my wireless microphone was $25, and it was a company that anybody who has ever been anywhere near the industry will have heard of. So it's probably fine. And it sounds like it does an okay job. I think I sound different, but that's because it's me, and to me, everybody always thinks they sound different, because we hear ourselves as much through our inner ear, and that's why we think we sound different. You hear your recording and you go, "Ooh, that doesn't sound like me," and all your buddies are laughing and going, "Yeah, sorry, bro, but that sounds exactly like you." Yeah. At least, I don't know, maybe your experience was different. I was like, that doesn't sound like me. And they're like, oh, yeah, it does. Oh, this has been a pretty exciting process. What is exciting is the future this tree holds. Also, not to get too far ahead of myself, but I'm thinking kind of like in the same breath kind of a thing. Excuse me. So we have our chop here, somewhere in here, and all of that roots. I'll probably go back through when I cut this loose. Shortly thereafter, I'll probably cut it loose here and there and there. because these are 2 tiers. And the tree is getting too long. And if we're going to shorten it this way, I'll probably need to bring it down some this way too. I'm thinking that the sense of proportions would probably suit that best of all. That's what I'm thinking. Now, I kind of, yeah. Not to get, like I said, not to get ahead of myself, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. There is still so many roots in here. So many roots in here. And, yeah, like I said about being schooled on the bamboo, geez Louise, this stuff is tough. It just goes raking through fields of clover like it's nothing. But you can really feel it when you hit, when you hit those clumps. I've got a lot of clumps in here to remove. And I just kind of scrape away the topsoil, and then these clumps are sticking out, the tops of them. My cuticles, I don't think I could do this with gloves. I wouldn't be able to grip them tight enough. But my cuticles are starting to get a little mad at me too. From all these little games of tug of war with these clumps of clover. God, these things are hard-headed. So satisfying. Okay. This pot, I've had several people ask me about this pot. I have never thought that I saw especially beautiful trees planted in this style of pot. I have seen videos out of China at bonsai nurseries where trees were made in mass, and I saw a lot of pots like this. I kind of assumed that they were that they're kind of a mass. Several people have commented that they really thought this, and it's a pretty yellow color. I intend to give it the old baby oil treatment before I put it back out. But yeah, it has a scenic. It has a scenic side here. And the other side has writing on it. It has something in, it says bonsai or something in Mandarin. So, yeah, there's another. I think I would like to do something a little bit more traditional. An oval, a shallow oval. I know. A maple and a shallow oval, you say? Wow, I never thought of that. But they do look good in those. And the point to that is is that you can pick a color that will complement the color you see in the leaves. In the, you don't have to pick the fall color. You could say, I picked this pot because it looks beautiful when the tree is green in the spring and summer. But a lot of people, I think, because in the winter, when the tree has no leaves, they'll pick a color that that they can enjoy in the winter, but at the same time, as the tree changed colors in the fall, it would have accented those colors. So before you get no color, you get the most enjoyment out of color. Kind of make sure you get your fill of a visual delight before the gray of winter sets in, I suppose. But even then, you still got the color of the ceramic container to remind you of the beauty that you had just got through looking at and enjoying. This is not the hardest job in the world. It's kind of satisfying too, in a way. I'm seeing parts of this tree, and I'm working on parts of this tree I haven't seen in a minute. I'm starting to come across less of those root balls now. That's encouraging. So I don't know if you can see that little red speck coming out of there, just jettison out of the bark. I would like to see something like that happen down here, so that if our air layer is successful, we will have things to jump off to. A lot of people will do this so that they can turn one bonsai into two. I am not playing a numbers game. I'm hoping to get one nice bonsai. If I get one nice bonsai, that will be a success. And anything after that, I will appreciate anything after that. But have less in the way of expectations. As far as that goes, I don't have expectations for the other. I'm just more hoping. Okay. That gave us the little room. I moved the tree a little farther back on the table so that I wouldn't smack our backlight. The bamboo stake has been easy to work with. It hasn't. I can work in tight against the trunk. I don't think I'm leaving any marks or tearing it up in any way. It's strong enough to hang in there. I certainly see why people who have bamboo growing on their property use these. They're Yeah, I'll be cutting more of these out for sure. All I did was so you would take a round piece of bamboo and like take wire cutters and go to the open end and cut it across from itself, up and down in 4 places, and then break one of those four places off, take that piece, and then cut off a piece that's that thick, and then you've got enough for about 12 more on those other pieces that you haven't cut on yet. Then, if you want to, and if you have the devices, you could take your knife and whittle it down a little bit to a little sharper point, or you can do what the teacher was doing and going up to his bench grinder and grinding them down into more of a little vampire steak shape. So with like a half a dozen of those bundled up like pencils, they would go into a repotting, and big, huge, heavy trees where angles would be altered, and they would reach for these for all kind of uses. Reach for rebar, and they would reach for bamboo stakes, and use all kind of things to help them achieve success. Whatever it was they were looking to achieve, be it an angle change or to raise the tree up or to something. Okay. Can you tell this stuff is fairly stubborn? I think you can. I think you can see them. I don't think all of these roots are particularly attractive. So, if given the chance to work with the bottom half of the tree, I'm thinking that whatever the tree gives us to work with on the top is what we'll start with there, and that'll dictate our plan. But then on the bottom, I'll have to start learning about how to try to what I need to do, which direction do I need to take. When I have something like this, do I cut all of that off and start over? This isn't bad. Here, look, that's all. Wow. Do I cut this off and leave this going? This is hollow over here. It might be that that's on its way to making something nice, and I'm just, is this the teenage awkward years from something that I would otherwise? I don't have enough experience with maples to see that becoming something. It just looks, part of it looks like something that's cool, and part of it looks a little grotesque. Kind of like the roots on my wisteria. I went, wow, that's got really big roots at the base. I guess that's kind of cool. Not really. They look like big potatoes. And I often see people cut those off. I think my wisteria, my little white wisteria, my little stick in a bonsai pot, is getting ready to bloom again. We're going to have those very, very fragrant white wisteria flowers. to look at. I always enjoy, you know, if you're going to be a stick in a bonsai pot, it's a big help that you bloom. You know, it's a really big help. I've got another stick in a bonsai pot that I've had for several years now, and no blooms. No blooms on this guy whatsoever. I'm kind of thinking about a repot. I'm going, you know what? I had a lot to learn. This is another classic example of a nice pot, like a nice pot, and a $25 tree. And it would be one thing if it gave up the flowers, but whenever I do a little show about and talk about wisterias, I tend to mention that if you're going to do a wisteria, if it's important to you that it blooms, if that's, you know, if you've seen those blooms and you go, wow, I could have a bonsai tree that does that, if that's important to you, make sure the tree you acquire is a bloomer. They make these little felt pad looking things with pouches of seeds in them, and they're not hard to sprout. And every one of those pouches probably has, you know, 5, 6, 8 of those little beans, right? Little seeds. And 5 or 6 or 8 of those in about 20 years, and you can see some blooms. Another way, they don't bloom necessarily for a long time. You may grow one, literally grow one for a long time and never see one bloom. You may see one growing along a fence and have it be 10, 15 years old and it's never bloomed. They cut one down close to the school here and nobody knew what it was because it never bloomed, but it went all the way up into the top of an oak tree. And I didn't see it until a bulldozer had already cleared the property, and in amongst the mud and piles of dirt were all these wisteria vines. Nothing hardwood, just like 1 or 2 year old growth, and you're like, man, there's huge stumps in there. If I knew where to dig and had permission to do so, and but even then, had it bloomed, probably somebody would have said, hey, that's a wisteria, you know. When they cleared the property, it never even got noticed. So what you can do to make sure that you're not a person who wanted a wisteria to produce a bonsai tree that also produced flowers, only to discover it doesn't, you know, the way around that is get one from a blooming tree, or they're not hard to clone. They're really easy to clone. If you clone a blooming tree, you will get a clone that blooms. Whatever clone you take will be in the condition of the parent plant when taken. Genetically good or bad. Genetically as tired or as healthy. Yeah. So I have a little white wisteria. I just saw it's putting out all of its shoots, and every year it puts out some beautiful white blooms. And I bought on eBay in my first year a Chinese Wisteria sinensis that I was told was blue. That's what I was told. I was told it was blue. I doubt if this tree has ever bloomed. I don't know how many more years I'll have to wait to see it, but I'm about ready I'm about ready to pick out a nice terracotta pot and let it fatten up in something until later. That's what I'm thinking. Because Pat made a rookie mistake. I thought I will put this beautiful blue, told that it was blue, Chinese wisteria in this blue, beautiful lotus pot, and they will go so good together. And I will train this tree, and I will love this tree, and they will grow together. Well, sorry I did that now. I'm kind of disappointed. I'm kind of disappointed in not knowing that about wisterias. I'm kind of disappointed in not knowing how long I would have to wait for this tree to do as delivered. And I kind of feel like kind of the same thing that a lot of people never think a thing in the world about a cherry tree until they turn around and see all these little cherry blossoms all over a stick in a bonsai pot. And it's eye-catching. They're pretty. They look like they're sticks clinging to life with beautiful pink or white little flowers all over them. They're stunning. They don't always say age to me, and a lot of the cherry trees that I see in bonsai are not necessarily the trees that I would look at away from that one time of year when all of those blooms are so beautiful. Anyway, the bloomers. Sometimes I think it's easy when you first get into bonsai. We're impressed with the bloomers. We're maybe a little impressed with the flash, and a little ways into it, and our eyes adjust. Quality bonsai always stands out, and if you look close, you'll see why. Before you can explain why, if you look close, you'll see why. And the knowledge of bonsai is, to me, how to turn what you see in that quality into the techniques that produced it. That's, when you see somebody working on their tree and it doesn't look, what are they doing? It doesn't look like anything at that moment. See that person, or not that person, but see that tree in its hour after, the results of all that work. Not one moment, but 1,000 little moments. And that's what we're looking at when we're looking at a beautiful tree. Somebody else's 1,000 little moments. If we're lucky, we enjoy those 1,000 little moments as much or more than the ones when we're sitting here beside the tree and it's all looking, sometimes you look back on something and you go, wow, that's just absolutely beautiful. I'm so happy that turned out that way. And you can take credit for watering it, and you can take credit for the scissor work you've done, but it's its own thing. It had to decide to be beautiful in response to what you've done, or despite it. Okay. core nails. All right. Home stretch team. The good news is I found a little more Nabari than what I remembered. That's bad. That's actually bad. When you go cleaning back to the weeds and you go, oh, Nabari. That's Nabari we didn't know we had. And the whole long and short of it is that after we started feeding the root development, looks like it really took off in a positive way. But also, underneath all of those little lumps of biogold, these weeds were getting super strong. And it took no time at all for this to become something that was kind of out of hand. Give up. Wow. My fingertips and my nails are going to need a huge break after this. They're in just about the same kind of shape as this ground you see here. All right. This is going to be, I have, you know, if you think about it, it's kind of don't really, but it's kind of hard to think about. But I have a lot of pine trees. It's no surprise to a lot of people that most of the trees on my balcony, most of them are pine trees. And, you know, a quick pan of camera will show anybody that I've got these three enormous things right there in the middle that some people would recognize as bald cypress. So, okay, Pat has tens upon tens of pine trees and at least a few really big honking bald cypress trees. But it might interest you to know, or you might be surprised to know, that the species of tree that I have the second most of is maples. Well, you might say, Pat, you don't know squat about maples. True. I haven't jumped out and taken that maple lead the way that I have with my pine trees. I have gone kind of nuts and really tried to accelerate my learning on the pine trees and the oaks. Meanwhile, I've got a maple forest that's got 18 trees in it by itself. Plus this guy. So I have about 20 maples. This Trident Maple and almost 20 Codaheim maples in a forest planting, which also is now due for a weeding. We did a repot last year. Not gonna do anything but weed it this year. And a little prune work. So yeah, that's first year in the business. What did Pat do? I ordered some wisteria clones so that I could plant some clones. I wanted to grow some wisterias and have them coming out in between the rails of the balcony. And before the apartment manager went, "No, you don't." And yeah, I was going to say, well, I'm not going to let them. I know they eat wood, but I won't let them eat your wood. That was going to be the conversation we had. But before it even came to that, I'd kind of got addicted. I typed in, I had one left over. What do I do with this one that's left over? So I typed in wisteria bonsai because I had gotten into bonsai for a minute as a kid, and there for a couple of years in the woods of southeast Texas. I was digging up everything I could find, mostly little oaks and hollies and pines. Although most of our pines had needles that were so long, I found them to be a real turnoff, like loblollies. I couldn't understand. That didn't seem like bonsai to me because the needles were so long, right? But we had a welding shop, so naturally I was taking those gross, nasty welding rods and bending them around trees, and I had them growing in everything. And I did that for a couple of years as a kid, and then the 70s took hold, and chasing girls took hold, and racing motorcycles took hold, and then I got into my 20s, and then I got into the arts, and then I got into motion picture, and for 38 years I lived in hotels, out of my suitcase quite a bit. Traveled. I had a home, but I traveled out of home quite often to work on movies, and so I kind of remembered the fun of having a homestead. And one of the things that was nice about having a homestead that I was missing out on was bonsai. You know, the last time I had gone near bonsai, I was 12 or 13 years old. And then after that, things got a little blurry for a few years. That's the way it goes. Teenagers, 1 minute you're really enthusiastic, the next minute something else has your attention. However, bonsai never fully lost my attention. It just had a lot of competition at the time. And all of that other stuff came at the expense of the kind of life that you would have to have bonsai. You can't do motion pictures and go off all over the place working on films and have a bonsai garden. Not without somebody back home to keep it going, you know. All I could do to keep a dog that was glad to see me when I came home. But having a dog that's glad to see you when you come home is one of those things that is probably one of the few things that I would say is more important than bonsai. If there's anything that's more important than the joy that I derive from bonsai, it's the joy of having something that's glad to see you when you come home because of who you are. When I got this apartment, it came at a time when I knew I was scaling down. I had gotten this 1-bedroom apartment so that I could have something that one girl might be starting to get a little older, can manage now that I'm not a part of some super team. Now that I'm not jack of all trades, swashbuckling, whatever I had going before. I was entering into a new lighter duty phase of life. And like it or, you know, some of it I embraced, and some of it I thought I would, you know, there were parts of being big and strong and stuff that I felt were beneficial, that I thought that over the years I would be able to maintain, and you don't get to. I thought that I would get to pick and choose what jobs were too hard for me as an old person and go, well, that's bullshit. Surely somebody younger who hadn't already broken this or that a dozen times. But as it turns out, your age tells you quite clearly what you will and will not be doing. Even on days where you kind of miss it and would like to do it again. You know, it's like, well, I'm not really looking for the perfect excuse today, but too bad. Go behave or pay the consequences. What is that? Is that a bat? Look at here. Speaking of consequences, I may have, you know, my poor cuticles. First world problems. I've torn up my cuticles pulling weeds in my bonsai trees. Talk about a first world problem. But I guarantee you things were worse for these weeds. And it's not like I don't sympathize with them. But yeah. Alright. It's not. I didn't go lay down some beautiful substrate here behind it, but I don't have anything made up currently to lay down. And we just did what we needed to do. We just eliminated a whole bunch of competitors in the way of energy taking weeds. And I'm just gonna leave this tree right here. I'm pretty much ready to put my arms down for a few minutes and think about this. But over the course between now and tomorrow, tomorrow morning when I drag this tree back out, I'll probably I definitely will be going back in here and looking for a few more, finding for anything else that thinks it's hiding in here, like that one. I just bent my thumbnail over backwards like 2 minutes into this video. So I've been limping along like, you know, like that didn't happen. All right. Like and subscribe if you guys have not already. Our next video will be tomorrow. Let's see. I knew that I was going to do this tonight or tomorrow, and I knew that I was going to plant a whole bunch of Japanese black pine seeds. We did that this morning. I knew I was going to do some work on the balcony for in anticipation of a tree that's been on the road for a few months. We did that. So for today, this is show number 3, about to be in the can. Like and subscribe if you guys haven't already. Like I said, our next show, we will go out on the balcony tomorrow and do something. And tomorrow night, the school night, we'll probably behave a little bit. See, that doesn't look quite as bad. I'm not really thrilled about all this. That's solid tree. I should probably clean that back and expose that better. But I appreciate you. Frida appreciates you. And thank you. Oh, I was going to do this. You know, the next time you see this, I will have done that. This has already gone long for a week. We're going to do this. I will do this. I will do this in olive oil before I bring this to a halt. And yeah, no, I'm not breathing dust or anything. Thank you so much for watching. Kick the camera, Pat.